Hey guys, Josh here, and this is my review of Roots of Pacha. Developed by Soda Den and published by Creativo, Roots of Pacha is a farming sim that takes place in the Stone Age, and it's releasing on Steam this April 25th. They sent me a key for the full release earlier this month. I'm already close to 50 hours in, and that's not counting the 50 hours that I played during the alpha and beta versions of the game. And in this video, I'll tell you how my experience has been with this game so far, what I like and dislike about it, and hopefully by the end of the video, you should have a good idea of whether or not this game is for you. I want to start by going over the theme and the story. Roots of Pacha is set in the Stone Age, which right away makes it stand out from most other farming games currently available. You create your character by selecting from a good variety of skin colors, hairstyles, tattoos, and more, and you're part of a clan that just moved to a new land in preparation for the rite of passage you will be a part of. A bit later, you stumble upon people from other clans, and to keep it simple, your goal is to make everybody get along and bring your clan to prosperity. It's an interesting premise, and I like how the story really leans into the Stone Age theme. For example, a lot of the storytelling is done by the elder around the campfire, and there's lots of legends and things like that, and it just feels pretty immersive. The dialogues are well written and have bits of humor here and there, but like with most farming games, the most important story is the one you decide to create for yourself. Graphically, it is a lovely game. I know pixel art is not for everybody, but it is so well done here, and there's a lot of attention to detail, especially with the different character portraits and the food illustrations. I also liked to see how the village and forest change with each season, but unfortunately the other biomes like the beach or the savanna do remain the same all year around, which feels like a missed opportunity and a bit odd since they're both right outside of the village. I know it would have been a lot more work, and in the end it's a fairly small detail, but having the whole map change with the seasons would have been more interesting. Overall though, it is a great looking game. The animations are crisp and satisfying, and the UI and the HUD not only look good, but everything has been meticulously designed to offer a pleasant experience to the player. For example, one struggle I have with a lot of farming games is inventory management. You have so many seeds, tools, items, and materials, and often a limited space that can make it frustrating to manage and keep track of everything. In Roots of Pacha, you have dedicated wheels that you can configure for all of your seeds and your tools, and those are separated so they don't take any space away from your regular inventory, which is reserved for crafting materials and other items. This makes it quick and easy to change between different tasks, and you never have to go back to a chest in order to change seeds or tools since they're on your character at all times. One other thing that I liked is that you can switch between the different lines of your inventory to decide which one shows in your hotbar, simply with the press of a button, so there's no need to constantly move items around in your inventory. You can also craft chests very early on to store your extra items, and while I do wish you could color or maybe rename the chests for easier organization, overall I do like how the developers thought outside of the box or outside of the chest with the inventory management and figured out ways to make everything seamless. Even with a lot of different tools, seeds, and items, it's all very easy to manage, and I wish more farming games had similar systems. As for the controls, I played with a mouse and keyboard for the most part, but I also tried with a controller, and both options feel equally great. You're only using the same few buttons for pretty much everything, and the controls are very easy to get used to. There are also tutorials available in the menu for each game mechanics that gets introduced, and for this reason, I would say Roots of Pacha is a pretty good farming sim for beginners. Everything is explained pretty clearly, but you also don't get overwhelmed with information, and new features are being introduced in a gradual way. I also noticed a few things that the developers did in order to make the game more accessible to colorblind people. For example, quality levels for items being indicated with a symbol instead of just a color, and during a certain cave trial where you have to count the number of armadillos, in each one being a different color, they also decided to put different icons above them so you can easily distinguish them from one another. I'm not colorblind, so I can't tell if the game maybe has other areas where things could be not as good, but at least from what I noticed, it looks like this is something that they did take into consideration when developing the game. And overall, I just feel like they paid so much attention to detail in creating Roots of Pacha and making it a pleasant experience accessible to a wide variety of players, and that everything was carefully thought out and created for a reason. And speaking of things being there for a reason, I like how it's not just a farming sim with an aesthetic Stone Age coat of paint. Every aspect of the game has been adapted from the traditional farming sim formula to truly make it fit into the theme. For example, you begin the game with the hand axe, which is a simple stone tool used for everything from tilling the soil to cutting trees, breaking stones, and even fishing. It's not very efficient, but it's very versatile and it avoids overwhelming the player with a bunch of tools right from the start. You also have a water skin, which is used to water crops, and it's also not very efficient, but as you play, you will discover a variety of materials and things, and your fellow clan members will come up with new ideas such as more efficient tools, the ability to tame and ride animals, different ways to process food, and even ways to keep track of time and dates, as when you start, you cannot see the exact time, and you cannot see more than a few days ahead on your calendar. It's a really fun progression system that feels rewarding, and at least for the first year, which should take about 30 to 40 hours, you will constantly be developing new ideas, which creates a very addictive gameplay loop. In order to learn these ideas, you need to gather certain items, and the clan needs to reach a certain amount of prosperity. Prosperity increases automatically every day, and you can help increase it faster by contributing items, which also gives you contribution points, the main currency used within the clan. As your prosperity increases, not only do your fellow clan members help you learn ideas, but they also build new infrastructures. Those are mostly decorative. I was disappointed when they built storage for building materials, and I thought I would be able to put things in there. However, I couldn't. But still, those infrastructures do make the village look like it's evolving, and they make you feel like you're not the only one working, which is appreciated in a farming sim, a genre in which you're often the only one doing everything. And of course, it wouldn't be a farming sim without the farming. Before your clan discovers how to make seeds, you have to go out and pick up wild ones, which can then be planted anywhere on your 2 fields, which are quite messy at first but very large, so you don't have to worry about running out of space even later in game. You have to water crops every day with your water skin to start with, which can be a bit slow, but later on you will have a pot and even an irrigation system to make things much faster. Once your crops are ready, you can harvest them, and the more you harvest a specific type of crop, the more your knowledge of that crop will increase, and you will have a higher chance of getting higher quality versions of it. Your crops will also get prettier as they evolve from wild to domesticated, so your first crops will be flawed, maybe looking a bit small or dry, but they will eventually become big, plump, and colorful, which feels rewarding. Of course, they will also be more valuable, and after that you can either put them in the contribution box to get contribution points, you can keep them for cooking, useful for replenishing your stamina, or transform them through different machines like a dryer, fermenter, mortar and pestle, and much more in order to obtain more valuable products. There are a good amount of ways to transform your stuff, but it never gets too overwhelming, as they're all pretty simple and are being introduced gradually. And I like that you can easily see lists of all of the items you can put into each maker and see what kind of items you will get in case you're ever unsure or forget. You can also transform animal products from the wide variety of animals that can be tamed, such as ostriches, guanacos, ibexes, and more, all of them coming in a good variety of colors. Just like seeds, you first have to go out and find wild animals. You have to gain their trust by playing the flute for them, which can take a few days and is done through a simple rhythm minigame. The minigame is cute, but it can feel a bit tedious at the beginning when you try to tame a lot of different animals and have to do it over and over again. Fortunately, each type of animal has a different melody to make things a bit less monotonous, and once an animal is adopted, you won't have to go through those minigames again. After 2 or 3 days of playing the flute for an animal, if you have any space left in your shed, you should be able to invite them to come live with you. They're pretty easy to take care of, you just have to make sure you put grass in the shed so they can eat on rainy days. And if it's sunny, they will just go out by themselves and eat the grass outside if there's any. You can increase your friendship by talking with them or playing the flute without the minigame, and every few days they will give you some products. You also have to clean up the shed once in a while, and if you don't, there is a chance that your animals will get sick and they will stop producing stuff until you heal them. It seems like sometimes, however, your animals can get sick even if you're doing everything right. Maybe I just did something wrong without noticing. Overall though, I would say it's pretty easy to take care of your animals. And once they like you enough, you can ride your animals to get places a lot faster. And if you have both a male and a female, you can breed them. With each generation, their stats such as the base quality of their products, their rate of production, and their running speed will have a chance of increasing. The baby will randomly inherit the color from one of their parents, and it seems like a small detail, but it's fun that each player will end up with different colored animals, and I like that there is a clear incentive to breed the animals. It's a nice change from most farming games where buying them from a store or breeding them doesn't make too much of a difference. You can also have pets which can follow you around. However, besides looking very cute, they don't do much, and I wish they could maybe gather items for you or something like that, but they're pretty much just decorative. So besides taking care of animals in farming, fishing is also an important activity in Roots of Pacha. There are over 40 different types of fish that you can catch around the world, and I'm still missing quite a few, so that is an interesting challenge if you are a completionist. The game tracks all of the different things you collected, discovered, cooked, and everything, so it will keep you busy for a while if you want to finish everything at 100%. But going back to the fishing, I quite enjoy it. Since you have to fish with a hand axe and later a harpoon, it is pretty different than your usual fishing minigame with a fishing rod. So it's a minigame where you see shadows of fish swimming around and you have to hover your cursor over a fish which will fill up little green bars, and once all of those little bars are full, it will say catch now, and clicking will catch the fish. There's also a slight probability of catching the fish if the bars are not full, but sometimes it fills, so being patient tends to pay a bit more. If you move too fast and depending on the fish, sometimes they will get scared and you'll have to move your cursor away for a bit while the fish is calming down. It can be a bit confusing at first, but once you get the hang of it, it is pretty fun, and I like how you never have to wait too long to find a fish, so you can easily just get one fish after the other, and at the end of the day, you can have tons of fish, and it's a good way to make money. There are other mini games you can partake in. For example, every other Saturday there is a race, which can be pretty challenging, and there are different tracks, so it's not always the same experience. And about once a month, there is a festival. Some of them are more interesting than others. My favorite one is the summer competition, where you can play a few different minigames that will reward you with prizes. And if you're playing with friends, it can be fun trying to beat their score. In fact, Roots of Pacha has been designed from the start with multiplayer in mind, and up to 4 friends can play together. I had the chance to play with my friend Miss Bubbles, who's also going to cover Roots of Pacha on her channel, and here's how it went. Right away, it was a bit disappointing that my friend couldn't use the character she previously created to join my world. I was already in the second year, and she also had made some progress on her own, but she had to create a brand new character in order to join me, which meant she would have to go through the process of getting all the tools and upgrading them, which is not very practical when you want to quickly play with a friend. However, once your friend has a character in your world, the next time they will be able to pick up where they left off and things will be much easier. So what I would say about the multiplayer is if you're starting a new save file with friends and you plan to play together for most of the time, it is amazing. I have not encountered any technical issues, it runs well. By the way, as a whole, I've not encountered bugs with this game. So the festivals and everything are much more fun with friends. However, if you plan to play with friends just once in a while or with different people, the way it's working right now might not be ideal. I understand this might be tricky to implement at this point, but other farming games released recently such as Sunhaven and Income do let any of your friends join you with their existing characters seamlessly, making it much easier to get any friends to join you on a whim, and I wish it was the same with Roots of Pacha. If you do play with friends, you will also be able to make progress in the story together. And by the way, a big part of the plot and a big part of this game as a whole takes place in the caves. Caves and mining are usually one of my least favorite parts of a farming game, but they did something different than the usual just digging from one floor to the next that we're seeing over and over again in farming games. First, the caves are very large with dozens and dozens of unique rooms, and you will stumble upon lots of puzzles that you'll have to complete in order to progress. Some rooms are dark and you'll have to find your way through with your torch, Sometimes you'll have to go back to previous rooms after unlocking certain tools or abilities, and sometimes you'll have to complete trials, which you can initiate by offering the correct items using hints found around the caves, and those trials are the more elaborate puzzles. They do make you think, especially the later ones, and completing them is pretty rewarding. However, if you do not like puzzles, they can be frustrating. In fact, one of the first trials has all of these mirrors that you need to rotate to reflect a beam of light at the correct spot, and I spent so much time on it, I'm not even sure how I managed to complete it. The light beams looked a bit glitched with one of the specific mirror, and it was a bit hard to understand. Honestly, I'm not too sure what happened exactly with that trial, but it annoyed me. And I know if it did annoy me, it will probably annoy other people as well. That being said, I found most puzzles to be fun, and there was always something new to discover in the caves, so I was motivated to go back every day to make a little bit of progress. And there are fast travel points inside the caves, so going back to where you left off the day before is pretty easy. I also think one of the reasons why I like the caves a lot compared to ones in other farming games is that there are no monsters. Don't get me wrong, I love a farming game with a good combat system, but more often than not, it feels unnecessary. In Roots of Pacha, you can simply relax, collect some ores while you go from one room to the next, do a puzzle from time to time, then go back home. The only thing you have to worry about is your stamina, but it's pretty easy to make dried tomatoes or cook some dishes that will replenish it quickly, so it's never a stressful situation. You also do pass out at 2 a.m. if you're not in bed, but if that happens, you will simply start the next day with a bit less stamina, but it's no big deal. Roots of Pacha is just a very relaxing game. There are no big consequences for passing out, there's no combat, making contribution points and gathering materials isn't too difficult, there's no time limit for completing the story or certain tasks. It's just a very chill game that you can enjoy at your own pace. You can expect about 40 hours to beat the main story, complete the caves and discover all of the ideas. But if you take your time, you can play a lot more, especially if you're into decorating. There's quite a good selection of decorative furniture in this game, and not only can you upgrade and decorate your house, you can also place things on your fields or anywhere in the village that isn't reserved for a future building. You can actually decorate even in the other biomes. There's also a good amount of clothing that can be purchased or won during festivals. Other things you can do in your free time are talking with your fellow clan members and giving them presents. What I disliked in the alpha and beta of the game was that relationships were pretty hard to increase and would decrease over time, but it seems like this has been rectified. It might take a bit of time to increase friendship at first, but once you give someone an item that they like, it will show up in their profile, so you know what to give them in the future. And as you get closer to someone, you unlock new interactions, such as dancing, which increases your friendship even more. More importantly, it doesn't seem like it decreases over time anymore, so even though there are a lot of characters, it is still manageable. However, I feel like there isn't much of an incentive to befriend most people, and personally, I didn't get attached to most of them. As you become friends, you will trigger some cutscenes and get to know more about them, but besides that, it seems like you're not getting much out of the friendships. However, you can of course date and get married to one of the many romanceable characters, no matter their gender. The date and marriage events are cute, but unfortunately there's not too many of them, and after that, there's not much happening. Your spouse will give you gifts from time to time, and you can have up to 2 children. Those are optional, so you can lead also a child-free life if you prefer. But I wish Family Life offered a bit more in terms of gameplay or events, which is how I feel overall about relationships in this game. It's not bad, but I wish it offered a little bit more. You might find a few characters you're interested in, but I wouldn't say this is the biggest selling point of this game. So here are my final thoughts on Roots of Pacha. It is a well-executed farming sim with an addictive progression mechanic, lots of freedom and decorating options, great controls, and it's very accessible to players of all levels of experience. As a whole, it plays very similarly to a classic farming sim, but with its Stone Age theme, it brings enough new ideas and changes to make it interesting and worth a try. However, the relationships and social elements are not the most interesting. The multiplayer could have been made a bit more seamless, and the puzzles could be frustrating for some players. For me, I will keep playing to decorate my village and try to unlock everything. It might be worth doing a second playthrough with friends, and it's not a perfect game, but I can see this becoming one of my favorite indie farming sims. Let me know what you think. Will you be buying Roots of Pacha? Or if you've already played, what do you like and dislike about it? Let me know all of this in the comments. Leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and I'll see you all in the next video.